Hey, how you doing? It's Clayton here from howtodrawcomics.net and buttonbrostudios.com, and I'm here today with a very special guest. We've got co-host Corey right up here next to me. He's in charge of the comments today. He's also the co-creator of Kozor, Descent into Madness. But the guest of honor is none other than David Finch himself. Welcome, David. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. We had talked about doing this quite a while ago, so I'm glad that we finally, managed to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has been a long time coming, and it's absolutely surreal for both Corey and I to be sitting here talking with you today, because you were one of our first influences and a huge inspiration to us. Not just for your artwork, but also the way in which you interacted with people. We never went to any of the conventions that you were at, sadly, because we're not in America. But, whenever we've seen you interact with people, you're such a nice guy. You're so kind to everybody. And I think it shines through on your YouTube channel as well, actually, where you do your drawing demos and tutorials and that kind of thing. Just the fact you're willing to help other people get to where they want to be in their comic book artist journey. It's a wonderful thing that you're willing to give back in that way.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy teaching. Learning is harder, but I enjoy teaching. And, part of it, really, a big part of it is that we wouldn't be here, all of us, if it weren't for the people that pick up the books and fans and appreciate the medium. And so I'm incredibly grateful to every one of them when I see them at conventions, and I want to make that as clear as possible. So it's very important to me. I love this job. Being able to draw for a living is a massive blessing, and I'm very grateful.
For sure. Yeah, I can tell you are, man. It comes through in your voice when you talk about it. Now, I know that you don't really need any introductions, and probably pretty much everybody knows who you are. But just in case there's like one person out there who doesn't, would you mind giving like a really quick overview of maybe some of the projects you've worked on, and let's say your favorite project as well?
I started in '94 at Top Cow, which is part of Image Comics. I started as an intern, which was scary because, that meant that, we're really not sure that this is going to work out for you, but we'll give it a shot. And it worked out well enough eventually in the end. It was tough going at times. I did Cyberforce for a while and a couple of the books over at Top Cow. And then I went to Marvel and did X-Men and Avengers, Moon Knight. If I had to think of my favorite, and it's so funny, I would say Moon Knight. Still, to this day, I had such a great time on it. And I fought with the writer so much. We fought, but I think it made the book better, and normally I'm very easy to get along with. And I mean, he was great, really. He really was. We fought because he had such a strong idea of what he wanted for the book. And so did I. And it's not usually that way for me, but I loved that book. So I made myself difficult.
It's a really good looking book.
Thank you. Oh, and then DC, I did Batman and Wonder Woman. A bunch of things.
So you got into comics, in the early 90s? Would that be fairly accurate? Maybe the late 90s?
94. So, 94. Mid to early 90s.
Awesome. Back when we had the X-Files and all of those awesome TV shows that were just starting up.
All the good Star Trek was right then.
Exactly, yeah. It was the good times. Now we sound like old men. But
I know I am.
But no, that's great. And how did you end up interning at Top Cow in the first place? How did you get your leg in the door?
Oh, I went to a convention in New York. I convinced my mother to bring me. We drove, I think it was 15 hours. And I ran into David Wool, who was the editor at Top Cow at the time. And they were looking for people. It was a fortunate time for me. It really was. I tried with a bunch of different people and I didn't get very far. I wasn't ready. But Mark Silvestri, who is Top Cow is his company. He is still, I would say, my biggest influence. I actually don't. I look at his stuff as a fan more than as an influence lately. Actually, for a long time, and that's only because I don't want to just copy his work, and it is so strong for me. I'm such a huge fan still that if I look at it a little bit, I just start drawing like that, or at least the best that I can pull off, And so, but I was hugely influenced by him. So I think they thought that it would be a good fit, and they knew they could teach me. We brought in a lot of artists. I say we, they did. I just worked there. A lot of artists that you could say weren't ready and that just developed incredibly. Mark was a great teacher.
Yeah, I've heard you say that a few times, and every time you say it, I get so envious because I think how amazing would have it been to have been taught by Mark Silvestri himself. Because man, I'm a huge fan of Mark Silvestri. No one else draws
and really
characters like him.
Oh yeah, no, and there's I think some truth to the fact that some of the things he does incredibly well, I don't know how teachable how teachable they are. There are artists, like for me, I consider myself to be very much a try-hard artist. Everything that I know how to do, I had to try hard to figure out, and really, I need to systematize it. It's tough. Whereas, and Mark, I know, put a lot of work into it. And you can see the progression in his early work to where he eventually got. But I kind of think that he's like a step above in terms of just, some people are just better. And I think he's one of those artists.
Yeah, I think in a weird way, some artists, and I don't know if this is true at all, but I think they don't care as much in a way. They're not as anxious and hard on themselves about it, and so that natural creativity can come through because they're not constantly self-monitoring. And I'm a big thinker as well. Like, I've got to really think it out, figure it out, and have a consistent technique that I can apply every time, and everything will be the same every time. But I think for somebody, like, I look at Mark's work and I go, man, he's just got to be in the zone to be able to pull that off. I doubt that guy is thinking at all when he works in the way he works. I think he's purely engaged on some crazy visual level where he's just seeing it come together naturally. I could be completely wrong there.
I think so much of it is, what would be the term? Mind's eye? Anyway, very early on for me when I was at Top Cow, Mark did a Cyber Force story with some horses in it, and I was right there, so I can say he did this without any reference at all. Horses in that book that looked incredible, and I said, "How do you know how to draw horses?" He said, "Well, I did an issue to Conan 10 years before, or however long it was," and so he drew a few horses, but I would have to draw a whole lot more than a few to be able to, and I think I could still do that. I've drawn horses. I use reference, and one of his pieces of advice, he said, if you have to draw the Eiffel Tower, don't just get reference of the Eiffel Tower, just, think about it. Think about what the Eiffel Tower looks like in your head and draw that. And I thought, well, if I could do that, and I can think about a lot of stuff in my head. And when you draw something, you get a feel for it. So that's true to an extent. But when he said that, it was actually a little bit clear to me that he's at a different level of talent than I was.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, man. Some people just have that natural ability. I'd be very interested to know actually how Mark Silvestri ended up learning how to do all of this stuff, where he began, whether he was just a self-taught artist, naturally gifted from the moment that he was born, or if he had to go through some sort of, hard and laborious process like we all did to actually get our skills to the point they're at.
There's some labor. No doubt for sure there's some labor, because I actually happened upon an issue. I think he did a backup story in Moon Knight. I don't have it. I've searched and searched. I cannot find it. And I can't remember what issue it was. Anyway, he did a Moon Knight story very early in his career. And it wasn't good work. I mean, I got to be honest. It wasn't great. So, he didn't start out just like out of the womb being able to do it. I think he had to have put a lot of effort in still, I do believe it, and I could give you a list of artists that I think are just, there's a level of talent that, very few people have. And I think Mark is certainly one of those.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting what you were saying about the, the Eiffel Tower as well. And, envisioning something inside your mind, just thinking about it, comprehending it in the way that you understand it, and then projecting that down onto the page, even without reference. I think it'd be very interesting to see what the differences actually would be between your individual interpretation and the actual way in which it looks.
It would be. And, I think in terms of study, it'd be very interesting to do that without reference, and then draw it a couple of times with reference, and then just draw it on your own without reference, and just see how much better you can do it. And every part of drawing that you do, this is where the brunt of learning kind of comes in, and it's daunting. But with anatomy, drawing it and looking at artists that do it really well, and if you like how this artist draws a foot, if you draw a foot from that artist a few times, well, you'll pick up a lot of that. And
for sure, it really is it seems to me a lot of the time just repetition. Like if you draw that same foot over and over again, you're going to be a pro at drawing that foot a week later.
Yes. Now the risk is it's very easy to draw a foot wrong without reference and just go, it's good enough. And you will learn that, and it will become ingrained in your head, and it will be wrong. And I'm sure we all do have things that we do wrong, and it's just part of how we draw.
Yeah.
The trick is to be able to pick those things out, find somebody that does it better, and steal it from them.
Oh, heck yeah. And sometimes it's harder to undo the wrong way of learning.
Yes.
And learn the right way, because once we've found something that we're set in, it's like, okay, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
So you were working in comics for a long time, and you worked with Top Cow, some of your best work. It's probably my favorite work that you did. I love all the stuff you did with Top Cow. I love their style in general. Actually, Mark Silvestri really had it all laid out over there for a long time, and then you went into the Marvel, DC, worked on some amazing projects like Batman. I mean, how did that feel to be working on some of the on the biggest character in comic books, or one of the biggest characters in comic books?
I did 2 runs on Batman, and the first run was not enjoyable, and I don't think I appreciated it at all, truthfully.
Right.
And I know why. I had gone to DC from Marvel, and I think that I thought I was more important than I was. I'll put it that way. And I was very competitive. Now, I think it's healthy to be competitive. You want to look at an artist and say, he does that incredibly well. I can't let him do that better than me. But what's really unhealthy is to say, this artist is here, and I feel like I should be there too. Because you can't, you can make yourself better. You can't make yourself more popular. You can't, you can't decide that you want another artist's career and get upset about it when it doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. And that's really where I was in my head. I was in a bad place. I mean, I was fine, but I think in terms of just from a growth perspective, I wasn't doing well. And no, I didn't appreciate Batman that much. I felt like, I'm just doing Batman now. I deserve this. And it is a bad place to be coming at it from. And I think the work really started to show. I think some of the first run that I did on Batman, you can look at some of that work, and it really slides in quality. And I had a bit of a period there where I was really suffering, and I was very competitive at the time. I remember thinking in my head, I'm competing with, this artist, and I should be bigger than they are right now. And very unhealthy kind of thinking. The second time I did Batman, it was completely different for me. I had really, really centered how I was thinking. I started focusing on the work more. I started sketching more and trying to learn again and trying to make myself better. And I felt like, I'm competing with other artists, but I'm really competing with myself. And
much better place to be in.
And especially doing a run on Batman, I was happy with some of it, and I was so unhappy with some of it. And looking back, seeing why so much of that work suffered, the next time I did Batman was, it was like a chance at, for me, redemption, and to be able to do work that I was more proud of. And so it was a great experience. And I hate to say, oh yeah, I was on Batman and I didn't care, and I didn't, but I was in that mindset at the time. It was very unhealthy.
Yeah, right. So what do you think caused you to click over into that mindset? And I mean, I guess it came about because you were comparing yourself to other artists and their careers in a way.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to be in.
It's the worst. It's devoting a lot of energy into something that won't help you grow at all. It makes you angry. It certainly did for me. And yeah, I wasn't enjoying just, I'm drawing pictures for a living, and not just pictures. I'm drawing, Batman. I'm drawing, it's the kind of thing that I wanted to do for so many years, and I've been able to do for so many years, and to lose sight of how fortunate I've been to be able to do it. I think what got me out of it, what really fixed it, was failing. For me personally, failing. And really being able to look back at the work and see that it was really suffering, and it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Right. And then having to look at why and what happened. And I want to say that it was talking to somebody, because I know it was, and I wish I could remember. But it's a lot of times it is talking through and saying, okay, this is where I'm at in my head, and just having somebody say, no, you're gonna worry about this stuff. And the minute I started sketching and trying to improve, the first thing I started looking at was Claire Wendling. And I did a stream on Claire Wendling. Her work is so incredibly fluid, and she sketches all the time. You can see she sketches from life, which I don't do still. I should. But she's constantly learning, and that's why her work is where it is. Also, another thing that I saw, I saw this thing on Disney Artists, and now these are the Disney artists that, that did the traditional animation, and these artists would be doing their best work of their career at 85 years old. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but old. I mean,
that's
old,
inspiring.
Anyway. Well, I'm hoping for more time, so I'll take 85. Yeah. But and a big fear for me is, as you get older, you start to lose skill if you don't nurture it. And I wondered for years, what is it that causes artists to start to fade? And what it is just drawing that same foot over and over again wrong, and it slowly it becomes a caricature of itself. It's like, and I've said this a million times, but it's like handwriting. When you first learn it, everything's perfect, and all the letters are, you have the dots on the page and they all line up, and then you get older and it's just a scrawl. And art can go that way too, if you don't constantly, dip back to the well, I guess.
That's an incredible insight, and you put it beautifully with the handwriting. I think you couldn't be more right about that. It's the moment that you think you've made it, and you are the very best that you can be, is the moment that you stop improving. You stop at whatever point you've arrived at. And so I feel like one thing that I know is certainly the case for me, and I'm sure other people who keep on progressing, is they find influences. They find new artists that they can learn from. They can look at that work and they can set a goal for themselves, like a next level to get to. And I feel like even though that causes your art to change over time, and it's not going to be 100% the same all the way throughout your career, I don't think that's a bad thing. That means you're evolving and you're making progress. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think as long as you keep finding influences that are appealing to you, because that's how we all start. You find influences that are appealing, you incorporate that into what you're trying to do, and it builds a style. That really is the key to building a style, is just, a couple of different influences and your own limitations becomes a style. So I think it's important, as much as there are artists that I'm a huge fan of. I've been a big fan of, and they've gone in directions that I just have not as liked as much. And I'm like, why couldn't they have just stayed right here? But I think it's important to do that, and you have to take risks. If you want any kind of growth comes with pain. So
very true. And it's scary, the pain. People don't want to travel into that place. They like the comfort, and it's hard to try and push yourself in different ways with something that you feel you've become quite confident with. But it's so worth it in the end, and it's so rewarding.
Yeah, and I think it's being confident with it, but it's also it's ego. When your ego gets attached, it makes it very difficult to honestly look at your work and look at your shortcomings, and especially to accept any kind of criticism. It's really hard. I'm taking a class right now in painting, and I got some criticism today that was incredibly good. It was really great. I mean, I learned a lot, but at the same time, I got criticized, and it's hard. I feel like I'm still struggling with it. Like, I can't believe But
did you talk back to the teacher?
No, of course not. I just, and I wasn't mad, but
of course
it hurts your ego a little bit. It's
hard to take,
and I think you need that. You need to be able to accept that.
Yeah, for sure. I know poor Corey is the one person that I'm constantly mentoring. And so the amount of critiques he gets on a daily basis about any aspect of his artwork, and I'm not perfect, but I feel he
was critiquing how his coloring, like the character's legs today, and I had to recolor it must be 8 times now. It's like, really, but 8 time, yeah, I kind of hate Clay.
It's like now he'll never forget it. But it's good. It's like medicine, We hate taking medicine, but it does help us to get better. And I mean, sometimes I envy Corey. I wish there was another better Clayton that could, mentor me and tell me how to get better at some things. Because sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm just stuck. And I don't know what the problem is, but something's definitely off. So, Dave, after all this time, after this many years drawing comic books, do you still have those moments too where you get stuck on a certain scene or drawing a particular pose for a character and it's difficult for you to figure out how to get past it? I mean, I'm sure you have a process that you go through to solve those issues, but...
Yeah. Well, I'll say less than I did when I started, and I'm sure for you the same thing. It's you do get to a point where there's a level of competency that you can hit, even if it's not great. It's fine, The trick is to find a way to make it good, make it something you can be proud of, and when it's not going that way, and you can see that it's not going that way, it can be very difficult. And I have that happen all the time where I'm halfway through a picture and I realize that it's just, whether it's stiff or whether compositionally it just didn't work, or sometimes I can't tell. I really can't. And sometimes maybe a month later I can look at it and I go, oh, okay, that's what was wrong. And then the worst times, though, are the times that I think it looks great. I'm totally happy with it. I think, oh yeah, it's a good picture. And I've done this on a live stream a couple of times. I've drawn characters and their head is just, I did a Superman. His head was too big. I didn't see it. And then you see it after. Actually, somebody in the chat said it. And I went, wait a minute.
Oh, brutal.
Oh, and then you see it.
That's even worse when you're showing people how to do it and you're doing a demonstration for them. And then they're like, yeah, dude, that's wrong.
Yeah. And it happens. It's, I'm sure, there are some artists, there's no artist that, whatever level you're at, there are times you're not going to hit that level. It's just, Michael Jordan missed some free throws. So, and I'm certainly not the Michael Jordan of drawing. So I'm going to miss more than a few. And, it's just, that's how it goes when you're drawing in front of people. Or really, it's how it goes when you're drawing a cover and you have days with it and you turn it in and you think it was great and it still happens.
It's okay. You can admit that you're the Michael Jordan of drawing, Dave.
Right.
No. But you're so right about that. We have our good days and we have our bad days, and that's really, that's just the nature of art. It's not mathematics where you get the same outcome every single time. It's
I want to say, and this is a question I get asked a lot, so I'm curious for you.
yeah.
Do you have days that you just cannot sit down and draw? Like, and people call it artist block or whatever you want to call it. Do you have times when you're just completely not motivated? And is that something you work through, or you just kind of let it go for a bit and then come back to it?
Oh man, sometimes things just need to get done. And so I think that it's not that I have days where I find it difficult to draw and I've got artist block. I think I have days when I find it difficult to get started. Because once I get started, I'm in the zone. Like, if you want to be able to do, if you want to be in the mood to do something, you just got to start doing it. And it's stupidly a simple answer, but it's very difficult to do. It's very, very difficult to just get that pen moving on the page.
Oh yeah, I think similar to exercise, and I know if I'm exercising, hey, I'm good, but I'm not in the best shape right now. So,
none of us are, I don't think. I know that, we've had a bit of a lockdown here in Australia. I'm sure everybody's heard about it over there, but I tell you what, when you can't catch up with your buddies and, things are just, you need some silver lining, right? And that silver lining sometimes comes in the form of donuts, lack of exercise, and lots of junk food. So I'm going to get it back on track as soon as possible.
One day. I've been saying that for a few years now, but I will.
Yeah. For sure, it'll happen. But you're right. That is a really good comparison, actually. It feels like it's the exact same feeling of, I could do these push-ups, or I could just skip them for today. It feels the same way when you're not in the mood to draw. It's like, I could draw, or I could jump on Facebook and procrastinate for a little while, watch a YouTube video, and before you know it, the day is gone.
Yeah.
But, I know that this is something that a lot of artists end up coming up against, the old art block. And, there's a great book on it, actually, that I read once called The War of Art. And I don't know if you've heard of it, David, but it puts across the notion that which we should be focused on the most important thing we should be doing, that'd change everything for us, is the thing that we procrastinate on most, the thing that we resist doing the most. Who knows why? The author refers to it as resistance. But
it's hard, man.
It's hard, and there's the expectation of some great outcome as well. It's a very interesting thing that it's more easier to do something which is less important a lot of the time.
There's no ego attached to it.
Yeah.
I think, it's easy to just sit around and be lazy with everything. But the hardest things to do, I think, are the things where your ego is involved. And, you do the work and it might not work. You did a picture that you really like and you want to hold that moment. You don't want to go into the next picture. And if this doesn't work, it's tough. It's very hard. And, or, you draw a picture and you put it up on, social media, or it comes out as a cover or whatever, and it just doesn't, people don't respond. It's hard.
It's like, didn't you see this amazing artwork that I just posted, everybody? You almost want to post it again just to make sure they saw it.
And I will tell you, I've quit comics before. I've quit books that I was on.
Oh, wow.
100% because I was just afraid of failing. And I'm never as afraid of failing as when something does really well, which is, you would think it wouldn't be that way, but success is so hard. I was on New Avengers with Brian Bendis, and that book did really well. And you'd think, hey, I must be so happy about this. Well, all I was thinking is, what if issue 2 doesn't sell as well as issue 1? Which, of course, they never do. But what if we can't maintain the sales past issue 10? And I thought that all the time. It was awful. And it wasn't the only thing. It was the first time I really, a lot of people really did not like that book. We killed Hawkeye. I understand, people not happy about that. We killed the Vision. So there was criticism. There were passionate fans about it. And I kind of ran from that too. But a big part of it was just, I just couldn't mentally face the idea of, I have it so great right now. If I quit, well, I quit on my own terms. But what if I now all of a sudden, what if it fades? It's ridiculous. When I say it, I feel like, what was I thinking? But that's where I was.
Yeah, this is some really interesting stuff, actually, that you're talking about, and it's not something which is often expressed, especially by artists of your caliber. But it's kind of reassuring to know that you go through it as well. I think probably everybody does to some extent, no matter what your level you're at. I know that whenever I've done an artwork that is spectacular in my eyes, I have the most intense anxiety about starting the next piece. For some reason, I'm like, dude, I don't even know how I did that on the previous artwork. How am I supposed to replicate it the next time around?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something that everybody struggles with. And I think as well, when you're in the beginning stages of learning this stuff and you're learning anatomy and that kind of thing, it doesn't really, you've only got to get good at drawing the muscle groups here and there and making sure that all the proportions are accurate and that kind of stuff. That's when you're in that studying mindset. But then when you've got to take all that and actually use it to create a comic book or to create an illustration, that's when all of this other stuff starts sneaking into your mind. And the ego really does start getting more involved, especially when you're posting your stuff out there on the internet and you're getting feedback and criticisms from other people, which we all get. And sometimes they're really helpful criticisms, and that's wonderful. Sometimes you get hit back and it's totally uncalled for and you can't use it at all. And you said that you've encountered some of that before. How do you deal with it?
Some of the harshest criticism that I've gotten, totally uncalled for, I think, has been some of the best criticism that I've gotten at the same time.
There you go.
That's somebody being brutally honest. And there are times that I disagree because I know the kind of artist that I want to be. And so, I have to, at times I have to say, okay, well, I love the, more aggressive, big muscles with the veins that you can see through the costume. I don't care. I love it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of hold on to that because that's what got me into comics and it's what I want. So I don't think it's still valid criticism, but it's more of a taste thing. So maybe not valid. I don't know. That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Let me ask you another question because I'm curious to see if you get it. You've got a very, detailed art style, lots of shadow, lots of heavy rendering. Do you ever get the criticism from people who say, Dave, I love the final presentation, but I liked it a few steps earlier when it was like just the outline?
Yes, absolutely. And I get that from Meredith, my wife, all the time.
I get it from my lovely lady too. It's crazy.
And they're not wrong, I'm sure. There's a time when it looks balanced. And it's so important to have, detailed areas balanced by areas that are stark. And, that contrast really helps, bring a picture out. And I'll just go in and put little lines everywhere to the point where everything kind of flattens down. And once you've done that, there's really no coming back. You're done, unless it was pencil, And I'm really kind of drawing with ink right now, so it feels like a high wire act. And I've actually done it where I've had pieces that are 50% white out. I mean, just big blocks of white out.
There you go. Yeah, it's hard to go back and rejig that stuff, especially if you've already inked it. It's what the worst part about that criticism is as well. It's like all that rendering and shading, it takes so much time. And so when somebody comes and says, "Hey, you didn't need to do all that. In fact, it was better beforehand," it's just like, what is wrong with me?
Well, and there are artists, Mike Turner at Top Cow.
Oh yeah.
He was an incredible artist. He drew beautiful figures, but he was a master. He was also very emotive, really great at setting a mood, not only with his scenes, but with his figures. They you felt them, and he was a great designer, such a great designer that he could take very simple drawings, really in terms of how much work there is on the page. Sometimes it'd be very simple and it would just be so striking and people would love it. And I'm sitting at my desk and I'm putting lines I'm killing myself. And there were times I got a little bit bitter. I'm like, look at how much work I put in. It's not what matters. It really is the final product. And
how the audience reacts to it, how they feel about it, how they engage with it. Totally. Yeah. So you did comic book art for a long time. You did a bunch of comic books. And then you decided that you wanted to start teaching other people how to do it. How did that come about? Why did you want to start teaching other people? Is it something you always wanted to do, as be a teacher? Or did this just come about, you woke up one day and you were like, you know what? I reckon I could help some other people out with what I know.
We had a really supportive culture at Top Cow. It was really a culture of teaching, not just from Mark, but really from all the other artists. And there are times it would get a little harsh, but again, like I said, sometimes that's the best critique you get. But we really learned from each other a lot. And when new artists would come in, I learned actually not just from Mark, but I learned a lot from Joe Benitez. I learned a lot from Ashby Manson was a colorist at the time. My understanding of line weight and connecting lines comes from a colorist, Ashby Manson. He explained that to me, and it made a massive change for me. You would think that I would have gotten that, from now, and I learned so much from Mark, but that one piece that really made it connect for me. And he actually opened a comic for me and he said, look at this. And he showed me, it was a Jim Lee drawing from X-Men. He said, look at how he did this arm and the way that he's got the arm going in the foreground. And I've done some tutorials like this, so you'll have, can't even see my arm in here, but you'll have the portion of the arm that's in front. Well, the line will. It's so hard to explain this stuff. You guys all know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
But I learned that from Ashby, and I owe him eternally for that. And and I really enjoyed helping younger artists at Top Cow when they were coming in. I found it was really gratifying. So I did it then. And then the Gnomon Workshop was the first, kind of really tutorial thing that I did. I don't know.
Did they reach out to you?
They did. And I'm not sure exactly how that happened. I think, you know what? I have a pretty good idea. They wanted Mark Silvestri.
Oh, now that would have been cool too.
How great would that have been? Unfortunately,
that'd be amazing.
Couldn't do it. He's a little busy. He's got his whole company's running. And so I think they were just kind of going down the list and hit. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll do it. So that's how that happened. And I really enjoyed it. And also I've heard over the years, I go to conventions and I've signed copies of it before, not that often, but often enough that I'm, I feel like it made an impact for some people. And it's a really good feeling. So
it had a huge impact. It would have been a total game changer for so many different artists out there. I mean, you can look at a guy like ZHC, for example. I'm sure you've seen his stuff on YouTube. It's like, he must have watched those Gnomon DVDs and paid close attention to them.
I hope he's still drawing. I know, he's pretty busy with some other things right now, but I hope he still draws.
Man, I don't know. He learned how to draw, and then he transcended to some other crazy place that we could only dream of getting to, I guess. Painting Lamborghinis and whatnot.
Some people have that it factor, and I think he just made people want to watch him. And next thing you know, what's he? 20 million? I don't know how much. It's crazy. It's turned into this massive thing.
It is nuts, man. I mean, that's definitely somebody you should try and get an interview with. I'm sure to build your subs up too.
I think so. I think so.
And then you've got Jason Fabok as well, who I believe you mentored for a little while. And I just think he's such a great example of, what your teachings can do for people.
It comes down to the person learning. It really does. And with Jason, he lives fairly close. I think he's 20 minutes away. He was maybe 30 minutes then. He's a little closer now. And he came over to the house, and I showed him kind of the same thing that I show everybody. Basically, like, this is, here's, and he was pretty good to start, by the way. I should mention, like, he was not bad, but I gave him kind of like, we're going right to the beginning, which I know can be very frustrating. For somebody, especially when you have a lot of knowledge and you've kind of built it up quite a bit on your own, to have somebody say, no, we're going to tear all that down and start from here. Some people balk at that. He absolutely didn't. He went home, did the stuff that I said to do, plus 100 other things. Like, he came with, like, a week later, and so he grew. He learned very fast, but he also put so much work into it. And yeah, he came along amazingly well. And I mean, obviously, and we still talk. It's not like I haven't been teaching him since the first 6 months of. I think it was so fast with him. It took 6 months for him to get his first shot. He did Soulfire. Anyway, it was for Aspen Comics.
Yep.
And that worked out really well. And then he did a couple issues of Batman. I was doing Batman the Dark Knight, and New 52 happened, and they needed me to transfer from the Batman the Dark Knight that I was doing to a new number one of Batman the Dark Knight. It was crazy time. So he ended up doing 2 issues, and they were great. They loved it so much that next thing you know, he was doing his own Batman. I think he went to detective from there. And I mean, the rest is history.
So incredible. Yeah. And you look at Jason Fabok's work, and it's just absolutely inspiring to see. And so you mentioned that it comes down to the student as to essentially how far they can really take the development of their abilities. What does the ideal student need most in order to, take one of your courses, for example, and see some real success from it, see a noticeable change within their work from taking it?
I would say, number one, you can't just watch it. I don't think that you actually get anything whatsoever out of just watching. It can be entertaining, and you say, oh yeah, hey, that makes sense. But until you actually do it yourself, it's fleeting knowledge. So you have to do it. But then I think the most important thing that I would say, and the reason why Jason did so incredibly well, is I can't say, okay, this is how I would structure an arm, and you go from here to here, and then you've drawn it, and now you move on. You really have to do that, hundreds of times, everything. And when I learned myself, and I'm obsessive a little, with that anyway. I mean, I'm a slob, so not that obsessive, but I kind of set myself a curriculum. And what I would do is I would say, okay, this week, I'm just going to concentrate on arms or legs or faces or whatever it was. And so I would spend my whole day for a week, and I wasn't sketching, as much as I would have loved to do a pinup of Wolverine. I did none of that. I just sat and I would just do that over and over and over again from different angles. And I broke it down to the point where I'd say, okay, I'm going to draw the outside of the arm. And that's what I would do all day. Now I'm going to do the inside, and, trying to kind of structure it that way for myself. And I think it's a mistake. And I see this quite a bit where, I'll say, okay, this is what we need to do. Draw a couple of sketches, and I intend to say, here's a couple of sketches, give these a try. That's supposed to be a springboard for you to do it, a million times. And it's a commitment. I know it's tough, but anything worth doing is hard.
Absolutely. There's only very few people who actually get to live their dreams and to make them a reality. And the reason for that is because it's so hard to actually make it happen. And yeah, especially with drawing, I think it's even harder these days. I know that I used to have an extraordinary attention span and ability to focus in my early 20s. I could sit down, I could draw out a bunch of arms that I seen you draw in your course, and no joke, my sketchbooks look like some obsessive madman with all these anatomy studies of arms and legs and torsos and whatnot. And whenever I had a spare moment on the train to uni or whatever, I'd be sketching away. I don't know if it's different for somebody in their 20s these days. I know that it's definitely different for me now, but my attention span, it's about an hour until I start to, run off track and procrastinate with something. And it could be the internet. It could be social media. I have no idea.
I think it's those things. I do know for me, when I sketch on my own, which is not as much as it needs to be, really. But when I do it, I tend to have about an hour window. So there you go. And after that, I really am kind of, petering out a little bit. I've been doing some, artist study live streams just over the summer.
Oh, cool.
And we go for 2 hours. And I'll tell you what, an hour and a half in, I'm like, that was it. I'm kind of done. Like I've done it. And it is not enough. It really isn't.
Yep. It's funny because I recently started a Heads and Faces workshop, and we had our first one probably about a month ago now. And because it was the first time doing it, I really didn't know realistically how long each session would go for. Anyway, the first session ended up going for about 6 hours, and I'd put a few breaks in between and whatnot, but I just didn't realize that covering that much content would take that long. And so by the end of it, the wonderful, wonderful students that had jumped on board, they were no doubt appreciative of all the information, but their brains were had liquefied and were spilling out of their ears by the end of it. Especially because some of them were on the other side of the world, like in Sweden and the UK, so it was like 7 a.m. or something nuts for them over there by the time it was done. Yeah. But it can be really tough, especially when you're learning to sit there and try to take it all in, which is why it's especially important to try to put into action what it is you're learning, and to try and, focus I've found is a bit like a muscle. If you can only focus for 15 minutes, try to bump it up to 20 minutes. And once you feel comfortable with 20 minutes, bump it up to 45 minutes and keep on going until you can focus for I think the ideal would be about 2 hours, actually. I'd love to be able to sit down and focus for 2 hours straight on something, on one thing.
I find for me, because if I'm trying to learn, it's very difficult for me to focus after, and I can, but I'll kind of lose it when I'm just drawing, especially once the layout's finished and it's working and I'm just putting in the detail. I can just go all day. I put something, whatever it is on Netflix, watch the same show for, 3 times in. Yeah. And as long as I'm enjoying the show. Where it's tough for me is when I can't find something to watch. All of a sudden I just can't draw anymore. But
oh no, right.
You're not learning when you're doing that too, because so much of your attention's focused somewhere else. And I think you do need to sit and find the way to just sit and focus. Don't let yourself I want to say artist block, but don't give yourself the excuse of not being motivated to do it today. That's all. And everybody says this about everything. Anything that you want badly enough. I think school, the main benefit of school is you have no choice but to do that work. If you're able to do that work on your own, I think school is still great, but I didn't go to school. I'll admit that. So.
Yeah. So you dropped out early, did you?
I almost finished grade 11.
Okay, cool. And look at you, one of the most successful comic book artists out there. Apparently you don't need school.
You don't. At the same time, it really is actually a job that your art is your resume. Yeah. Nobody cares about education when it comes to drawing comics, or really, honestly, about illustration in general. They don't care. The advantage of education, obviously, is the education itself.
Of course, you can count the amount of money that you get for being an amazing comic book artist at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've actually got to go for now, guys.
Oh, okay, no worries, Corey. I'll catch you later.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Oh, good.
See
He's
you later.
jumping out. He's got an appointment to go to. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is just get your website up here, Dave, because I know that this is something that's kind of special because it took you a little while to get this together, but now that it's here, it's very, very professional looking and is essentially a hub for all the courses that you offer, and all the videos on your YouTube channel can be found here too. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this wonderful resource came about and its evolution over time?
Well, I needed a site. So,
Yeah.
it started that way. Unfortunately, I have a blog section. I should probably remove the only blog items that are in there are the ones that I did when I first put the site together.
Right.
So yeah, I have another website. It's dfinchartist.com. I think now that one, it's ancient.
I remember that
and
one.
Terrible. And I was going to replace it. I was going to just fix it. I could not figure it out. So I finally ended up making this one. And it's more focused on, the tutorial course kind of content. So yeah, I've got all of my YouTube archive, which you can really just find through YouTube also, but it's kind of nice to just, see it in a list and run through. If you're looking to draw, legs, for instance, there's a video on legs and you can find it up there. All the live streams are up there.
Here it is here. Beautiful. And in such a professional layout, easy to find everything you could ever want to know about. Look at all these topics you've covered so far. And we've got a link to it in the description below, everyone, so check it out. And
well, yeah, thank you. It's incredible how fast that list builds, I've been doing this really for a year. YouTube is, I started in May of last year. So just over a year, and it ends up being a lot of content fast.
That's amazing. And I'm sure you built up your audience since then quite a lot. I've seen you build up your audience quite a lot. And, even in the comments here, big hello to the chat, by the way. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're getting so many people just thanking you for all the amazing help that you've given them, and the ways in which you've helped them to improve their drawing.
Well, thank you very much, everyone.
It's really amazing stuff. And so I'm guessing you've received a lot of feedback from people on your YouTube channel. I mean, it's like a total gold mine now. Not only can people see all of these wonderful lessons from you, all these tutorials, but they're also able to tune into the live streams and actually, interact with you and ask you questions. And
yeah, which I really love. It makes it very unpredictable in a way that, just sitting down and drawing on your own isn't. So it's a lot of fun. We do a Monday night draw, which we're just starting. Actually, the first one will be next Monday. We did it for all the way up till summer, and Meredith, my wife, we moved this year, and so there's a lot of work around the property and trying to get everything going, and so she wanted to take the summer off. But she is so great on the live stream because she really is more of a talker than I am. I think she's a little better at it. Yeah. So she takes all the questions. She has a great relationship with everyone that watches.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. The perfect co-host, the best co-host you could ever ask for. Okay, and we've got your courses over here too. So you've got one on drawing superhero heads, drawing expressions and caricatures, and you've got a combo bundle for them as well. I'm sure you've had a few people jump on board now. What are they saying about these courses? Are they finding them effective?
Yeah, everybody is so nice that nobody is really saying, "Oh, this was awful. I got nothing out of this."
Yeah.
Everybody is so nice. So yes, the feedback that I've gotten has been very good. But I really do want to keep trying to make them better every time. And every time I do one, I learn something else. And there are so many things that I don't know. So a lot of this is really me imparting as best I can my technique and my process for doing everything that I'm doing. But I found actually the last video that I did for my channel was it was on drawing female hips, and I did that because I was watching. I don't know if you're aware of Mikey Mega Mega. He's got a YouTube channel.
I have, yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very good, and he had this technique, and I didn't actually get it from the video. I've watched a lot of his videos, but the technique that I saw actually was just from looking at his drawings.
Oh, cool.
And the way that he was drawing the hip shape as like a bowl, something I never really thought of before, and so much of it for me is it's trying to explain it in a way that makes it as simple as possible to make it work, for somebody that's learning it. And I find for me, trying to find the most simple way possible is actually making it better for me. I'm learning as I go. I feel like it's really helping me too.
Totally. Now, you said you're not much of a talker, and honestly, neither am I. I've got to try really hard to be able to come across as even this low level of charismatic. But I've found it super difficult because I'm not that much of a talker to actually do tutorials and narrate over the top of them. Did you find the same thing, and have you had to kind of figure out what sort of approach you're going to take when you do so? Maybe the live streams have really helped you out in that way?
You know what? I wouldn't say the live streams have. They feel like such their own kind of a thing.
Yeah.
When I do the tutorials, I do them one of two ways. One way is to just draw and then do the audio afterwards, which is hard because I'll say the same thing 5 times over. By then, the drawing is like, it's so much further and I have to rewind to back where I was and hopefully it'll line up, and it's tough. And then the other way is to just draw and talk, which is also really difficult because I'm trying to make the drawing as clear as possible while being as clear as possible. They both kind of can be a challenge. And I've had a lot of times while I'm doing a tutorial where I'll just have to stop, get out another piece of paper and just start again. But
I know the feeling.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's happened. Yeah. So now,
go ahead.
When you do yours, have you done it both ways?
Yeah, I've done it a few ways. It's quite interesting. So I've done the time lapse, talked over the top of it, and that works out okay sometimes. It takes me like 10 takes until I've got the one I want, but otherwise it's okay. I've done the talking while I'm drawing. Now, I'm already a slow artist, so when I start talking, those demonstrations get really long, and I start to... It's almost like I'm saying too much information. I have a hard time cutting it back and getting to the point. Everybody knows this. But the other thing that I've started doing, and the thing is that I'm always second guessing myself. So whether or not I'm doing the time lapse with the narration over the top or I'm doing the talking as I'm drawing, I'm always second guessing how good it is, and I'll keep on redoing it and redoing it and redoing it because I have this horrible case of perfectionism with so many things that I do that I actually care about. What I've found has been working the best for me is doing a live workshop because I get it done. No matter what happens, I can't go back and rehash it during the live showing of that workshop. Now, whether that's on YouTube and I take it down, 24 hours later so that I can use it as a premium course, or if I'm just doing it as, like a paid workshop that isn't released as a pre-recorded workshop until much later on, I've found that seems to be the best approach for me, although the artwork doesn't always come out as pretty as I'd like it to come out. And I guess that's kind of the nature of teaching as well, is that you're usually doing some very rough examples just to get the point across. Yeah. So the next approach I'm going to take, Dave, is I'm going to do up a bunch of slides that have very clear examples of what I want to talk about. And, they'll be illustrated. I'll speak about them without using a script or anything like that, and I'll go through them because I've found that I'm able to do that quite easily. The time lapse isn't causing me to have to feel like I need to speed up what it is I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
right?
I've done it where
And
I'm editing and I edit. There are no breaths. There are no pauses anywhere. I'm just like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's tough, and you get lost. You're like, oh damn, where are we at now within the artwork? So slides have really worked well for me from the experience I've had with my workshops, and I'll mix that in with some actual demonstration, because I feel like I need to show it clearly, I need to describe it well, and then once we get to the live demonstration part, it's just kind of, chill, because I've explained everything I want to explain.
I think that's a great approach. And actually, Proco, most of his videos are done that way. And I mean, they're beautifully animated.
They are.
And, it's very scripted, but he's very good at following a script, but then, just kind of, he's not reading from a script.
Right.
I don't know if I could do that either. You give me a script and I will pretty much just read it,
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I did a superheroines course once, which is all pre-recorded and time-lapsed, and then I did a script for it, and every word was pre-written, and it was a 5-hour long course. So that thing took me like 6 months to do a script for.
Yeah, it's a book.
It was pages and pages and pages long. So I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
But I can say that I was very happy with how it came out. It's just the amount of time that it took was not quite worth it. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is do you think that teaching other people how to do comic book art has helped you and does help you to become a better artist yourself?
It really does. You have to kind of intellectualize a lot of things that are very easy to take for granted in your own work. That's definitely been a big help. And and I mentioned the female hips example, but there are other things like hands. When I did my hands video, I was trying to find the easiest way that I could think of to draw a finger. Is really not how I was doing it at the time. And that is how I draw my fingers now. The way that I did it in the video, it just was a much better method. It was so simple. Cool. It kind of caught me by surprise. Another one I did male torsos, and I wanted to do just a really simple diagram of the stomach, as simple as I could possibly make it. And when I did it, I thought, wow, this really works. I do that all the time when I'm laying out my stomach now. It connects better than what I was doing before. And then, there are times when most of my videos, I don't really research, which I should probably, but I don't want to just give people the same information they can get somewhere else. So I don't want to watch somebody else's video or read, and take something from Loomis and just, I want it to be my own method. But I do find there are times that I'll start looking around, for ways to get something across. And I learn a lot just from that too. It's amazing how much knowledge there is out there nowadays that just really wasn't there, 25, 20, whatever, how many years ago.
Yeah, and it's so easy to take it all for granted too, but when you actually sit down and you watch even just a YouTube video all the way through, one of your YouTube videos all the way through, and you pay attention to it, it's so incredibly valuable. But it's funny because we don't just procrastinate when we're supposed to be drawing these days. We procrastinate when we're watching a YouTube video, for goodness sake. We can't even make it through a full YouTube video these days.
It's true. And I would say too that it's very easy to feel like you've accomplished something if you watch something like a tutorial or a lesson on something and you learn something and you feel like, okay, that you've accomplished something, but you really haven't until you put it into practice. And, there's just so much information out there. I have learned how to watercolor. I've learned how to do so many things. I can't watercolor at all. Like if you actually had me watercolor right now, it would be a disaster. But I've watched people do it beautifully, and I thought, oh, that makes sense. But because I never tried it, I think it's kind of the difference between short-term and long-term memory. Short-term memory is what you watch on YouTube. It's interesting, and it just flies away. But if you really study it on your own, and just do it, it becomes long-term memory and it becomes part of you.
Yeah, for sure. It's the difference between passive learning and actionable learning. active learning, I guess you could call, is a better term for it, where you're not just seeing and you're not just hearing, but you're actually doing. And I think that's when you're able to properly cement the information and put it into action in a way where you're able to understand it properly. Because there's a certain level of understanding when you're just hearing and seeing, but then when you're actually doing it, it's almost like all of that information and all of that understanding all of a sudden has context to it. You know, you can see how it works and you can feel how it works. And that's just, it's so incredibly important. And I would just say the biggest motivator, if you need one, to everybody watching, is that this is actually possible. Like, you can become that comic book artist you dream of becoming. Many pro comic book artists out there weren't necessarily gifted from the beginning. In fact, I don't know if there is natural talent. I think there's natural motivation and aspiration to become great at something, but in the end, it is a technical skill, and you can learn it, and over time, get good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. You really can. I think there are people that are naturally going to be better at math than other people.
Yeah.
So it is a thing. I think it is true that people have ways that run into. You know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
You have strengths.
Yep.
For sure, but that strength really is only potential. And
yeah.
I think the difference between an artist that is really at the top of their game and an artist that is not, both of them have that potential. Both of them, if you know that you can draw and it's something that you can sit down and you feel it. The reason you're drawing, I would say, if you're watching this, well, obviously if you're hearing this, anyway, if you're watching this. I would think it's because drawing is something that interests you, and it interests you because you have talent in it. I mean, if I was a great driver, I'd be more interested in, I like watching race car driving, but I wouldn't want to do it. I think people that really want to do it is because you have it's something that you naturally excel at, but you still have to learn. It takes a lot of time.
Absolutely. I'm sure that the way in which your comic book heads look now, or comic book figures look now, look very different to the way they did when, you were in your early teens drawing. Have you been drawing for that long?
I started drawing seriously when I was 20. Now,
right.
I drew the whole time when I was a kid, and I drew in high school, just not much, nothing like I really should have. And it was very limited. I would draw skulls, or I would just draw, cartoons of like, making fun of the teacher, like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, I remember doing that too.
Yeah. So it's not something that I just didn't see it as a potential career. It just seemed, well, for me, art seemed like putting a bowl of fruit or whatever it is. In my case, I failed art twice in high school.
Yeah, right.
They put some simple shapes, and this is a great exercise, and I should have done it. I just didn't want to. They put some simple, just like a cone, a sphere. They're all just white on a white background. You light it, and now you have to do it in charcoal. And I was like, oh, forget it. I didn't want to do it. So I just sat there and drew skulls and failed. And, I think I had to mature a little bit. Yeah. That's a big part of it. But anyway, the point was that I saw art as being that. I saw it as sitting down and just copying something from life, or, the kind of thing that they were having us do. And I hated it. I just thought it was completely not for me. And it wasn't until I saw comics, and I had seen comics before, but I think I had to, kind of have one in front of me at the right time for me to say, wow, this is an opportunity for me to create worlds out of my head, And
that's awesome.
I thought it would be easier than it was. I totally thought, oh yeah, this is gonna be no problem. I'll be able to do this. I can draw. Really, I remember thinking it was gonna be a breeze.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I was fortunate that while it wasn't a breeze, to say the least, I loved it right away. I knew that I really enjoyed doing it. So it was, it carried me through some of the early, especially the times when I really, really thought, okay, this is not going to work. I just kept going. Also, I was a high school dropout. I had no choice. That's
right.
I have people ask, are you too old? I'm 30 or 40 or whatever the age is. Am I too old? Is it too late? Well, I don't think that age is a factor. It's when you're young, you have nothing to lose. So, you can spend, months and months just sitting and drawing. And you can afford to work for a very low page rate and you don't have a family to provide for. So there are advantages there. But I think the natural ability to learn is the same.
Yeah, totally. Man, I couldn't agree more. Your 20s are a special time in your life. You want to have fun, of course, go out and party up and go to uni and learn some cool stuff, make some friends and whatnot. But also you've got a ton of leftover energy to also study and do your drawing, if that's what it is you want to do. You don't really need that much sleep in your 20s for some reason, but it all catches up with you at 30.
It does.
And slowly increases 40 and 50, and that's a good thing. You know yourself better, you're more grounded, of course, and you worry less about things that you really don't need to concern yourself with. And that's all great, but in a sense, it almost makes you too relaxed. And so finding that motivation to keep on pushing yourself and to, do something crazy like build a business or build for me right now, I want to create my own comic books. Now, creating your own comic book and, or even building like an educational website, like it looks like you're building, Dave, like that is a huge endeavor to make it all work, to get everything moving. And it's difficult to conjure up the energy on some days, and you really do need to just take a break, sometimes for an entire week, if it gets too much. So, use your 20s, use your teens as well. I mean, have you seen some of the incredible artwork that some 16-year-old to 20-year-olds are putting out there on Twitter?
Oh yeah,
it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I think a big part of that is just how easy it is to find knowledge now that just wasn't available before. Mm-hmm. So these are younger artists that are just not letting anything stop them. They're not waiting for somebody to explain it to them. They can find everything right there and just do it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Now you were talking about when you were studying art and how you failed at that and whatnot. Understandable, right? And I know that you're getting into painting now, but what's so special to you about the genre of comic book art in particular, the medium?
I love that you can tell stories. I think that's great. Obviously,
For sure.
But really, my favorite thing is being able to build my own worlds. Which is why backgrounds are really important to me. And getting that detail. I use reference, but I don't like using reference. I like to get to the point where with whatever it is that I'm doing, that I can just kind of create it myself, because then it's my street that I made. It's mine, and I can kind of get lost in it a little bit. I think being an introvert, it's very appealing for me. And with figures too, it's very much the same. I really like realism. I want them to be believable. But what I don't want is to be photo referenced, and I think it really takes away something when it just, you lose that. I don't know what it is exactly. There's a term for robots that get too human looking, and I will never remember what it is, but you know what I'm talking about?
The uncanny valley.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And you get too realistic, but it's not quite realistic, and it can be very off-putting. And I find that, and there are artists that work in a very realistic style that, I would not say that about, like Alex Ross, incredibly realistic, and nobody would ever say that about him. But for the most part, for me, I like cartooning, because I feel like, I don't know, there's a connection that I know this, but I don't know that I could put it into words exactly. I feel maybe more of a connection to characters that are not completely real. They're, it's cartooning,
It's
than
weird, isn't
something
it?
that just looks like you can see there was a character and somebody took a picture of it and now it's a perfect rendition of that character. It really takes me out of the story. So the creation part of it, I think, is my favorite.
It's interesting you say that. I think it was Making Comics. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that book before, but I saw in it an interesting, I guess, notion, which was that the more stylized and simplified an artwork is, the more we relate to it as being us, because that's the conceptual vision that we have of ourselves. We're aware of our eyes, we're aware of our mouth, but we don't, have a high resolution visual representation that of ourselves. And so when we see, a cartoon, like an emoticon, for example, we really heavily relate to it as being us. Mm-hmm. And when you see something that's rendered ultra realistically, it's kind of the opposite, because if you're talking to someone face to face, then you are getting that vivid representation of how a person is supposed to look. You can see how, the different forms throughout their face, picking up shadow, how it's lit. And so the more realistic something is, it almost goes in the opposite direction. We don't think of it so much of ourselves anymore, but as somebody else.
Interesting. I have not seen that. I wonder, so many comic artists, and I would certainly include myself in this, basically draw the same face on everyone. I do try, I really do, but you tend to have, I have my strong male face standard, and I have my female face standard, and I really have to actually consciously think, okay, I'm going to, make the nose different or whatever it is in order to get a different face. And most of my favorite artists, I would almost say all of them, really basically, I can tell a face from, I don't want to just say an artist right now because I feel like it would be a dig. I don't mean it that way at all, but it's, artists tend to have, it's their face. And I don't know that it's I don't think it's the negative that you would think it would be. And I think probably kind of for that reason.
I don't think so either. I think that someone's style really comes through in the way in which they draw faces. Actually, it's kind of like their artistic identity in a sense. And sometimes the further they get away from that, I guess you could call it model that they've come up with, it tends to look weird in the context of everything else that they tend to draw.
Yeah.
It's almost like, let's take The Simpsons, for example. In the world of The Simpsons, yellow people that are drawn funny, it looks normal. But if you all of a sudden put like a regular colored person in there and they were drawn realistically, it'd look strange because it wouldn't fit in with the rest of the style anymore.
Yeah, it would break everything.
Totally. So you can draw as weird and as wacky as you like, as long as it's all, I guess, kind of consistent. Is the lesson there, right?
Well, and with the big caveat that writers have an incredible amount of power in hiring now, and writers have a very good idea of the kind of work that they're looking for from artists, and that opinion, it kind of has to be taken into account.
Yeah, very true.
And I think that a lot of times writers' taste in art doesn't necessarily square with, and I don't want to say fans, because fans are, it's so many different people, you can't just peg it, but most fans, I don't know, there are some types of art, and there are some artists that are more popular with a broader audience of people, but that won't necessarily appeal to most writers, I find. And so you'll end up with styles that can kind of veer away. Like for me, I really like, I said this earlier, but big muscles and the, what I want, it's, you could consider and I've said this a lot of times, and I kind of, worry about saying it nowadays a little bit, but the fact is that comics for me, it's like a male power fantasy. Now, I know that comics are not just for men, it's also a female power fantasy. And so you're drawing an idealized version of people in the comic as much as you possibly can. And I think a lot of writers want something that's a little bit more maybe emotional, something that's a little more sensitive, which I totally appreciate. Doesn't necessarily have the same broad appeal.
Yeah, I think that works really well in a novel. Like that's the power you've got in just written word is emotion because the visuals are taken out of it. But I think with a medium like comic books, who doesn't want to see beautiful people? Like, uh, I'm watching a TV show at the moment. I was talking about it yesterday called Spartacus. This has got beautiful men and women in it with chiseled physiques, right? And that's just it's aesthetically pleasing. It's pleasurable
Yeah,
to look at. And so if you've got a comic book where you're able to draw and depict people in whatever way you like, I think that it just makes so much sense
it
to
does.
create appeal within your work to
Yeah, we all aspire to an ideal, all of
exactly.
us, and we're all the
Yeah.
hero of our own story. And so I think that that's gonna be, appealing forever.
Yeah, for sure. When it's funny because I feel like when I see a character or a whether it be in a TV show, a movie, or a comic book, who represents the real me, I get a little bit uncomfortable with that. It's like I see the flaws within that character that I don't want to think about that
Yeah.
I also have. What I love seeing is, like let's say Superman. Let's just take Superman as an example. I love to see Superman and the kind of attitudes he has and saying, hey, you know what? I'm the same. I'm a good person. Or, I think the same things. I feel the same ways about this or that. And it may not be how it is in reality, but it's because I'm relating to my aspirations and the ideals of what I wish I could be. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the gift that comic books give all of us. They allow us to escape reality and be the hero for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. They really do. And that's what I love about them.
Heck yeah. So keep drawing those giant muscles and
Yeah.
pulsating veins, Dave.
Through the costumes. Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Through the costumes, because that's what would happen, obviously.
Yes.
All right. Now, the other thing that I want to show people today, before we wrap up, because I'm guessing you don't have a whole lot of time left
I've got as
tonight.
much time as you need.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Would you be happy to go for another half hour, or are you feeling a little fatigued?
Oh, sure.
I know what it's like to be an introvert. So so we've got your YouTube channel here, and you have got some really awesome videos on it. And every time I take a look at your library here, I go, man, if I had access to this all the way back when, I'd be an even better artist than I am today. Because I gotta say, I rewatched those Gnomon Workshop courses like a million times over. I went back, I revisited them, restudied all of the same stuff that I saw in them. But now here you are, like posting, how to draw female hips, how to draw weapons, all of this stuff that we've never really seen from you until now. And it's all for free. It's just waiting here for people to consume. And dude, that's such an amazing thing that you've taken the time to do these up because I know they take time to actually put together a video, edit it, and actually get it uploaded.
They do. They really do. And well, you know this. It's a commitment. Putting up videos, and it's not just talking about your life that day in the camera. And those videos sometimes can take people forever too. I've seen like the process of people making blogs crazy what they go through. But yeah, no, it's a commitment. But I really do love doing it.
Yeah.
And from a selfish perspective, truthfully,
Yeah.
I also know that it's as an artist, I'm reliant on people knowing about my work, and
Yeah.
I could have started a YouTube channel and just drawn pictures and talked about whatever, but I felt like okay, I love teaching, I really do, so it fit. But it's also to do a channel or to put something out there, it's a proposition of you saying, what can you do that would make it valuable for somebody to spend a little time with you. And I really wanted to do that to provide something that would make people want to watch the videos.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other really interesting thing is that you're not just an extremely good artist and you're not just great at explaining what it is you do. And I'm sure you might not feel the same way. You're probably as self-critical as the next art teacher, but I feel like you come across in such a real and relatable way. Like you're not trying to go overboard with your delivery or put on a song and dance. You're saying, hey, here's how it is. You don't do it in a boring way that's completely dry and impossible to listen to. You're somewhere in between, where it's just like you're sitting down with a buddy who's really good at comic book art, and he's showing you how to do the stuff.
Well, thank you. Really, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I could not do the over the top.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I watch videos back, and I'm kind of having to do a little now, and I've got somebody helping with editing, which is huge, but I still have to do a bit of it just to make it clean it up a bit, and I can see my face on it when I have myself on the screen, and my mouth is like it's tight. And I know it's because I'm not comfortable. Like it's very difficult to do this, to look in the camera, which I never do. It's hard for me to do it and talk. And, I'm sure you could relate, but I can see the discomfort on my face. Sometimes it kills me when and I thought, oh, hey, a year from now or a year later, I'd be more comfortable. It's still tough.
Well, do you feel like it's any more comfortable than it was before you started streaming, for example? Like, surely that must have helped out a little bit.
It is. It actually really is more comfortable. So, I haven't exactly turned into Howard Cosell,
Right.
But it is more comfortable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it was a huge game changer for me, just being able to do the live streams and to let go a little bit. And I was somebody who always had to, even when I was just talking to a buddy, I'd have to think about what I was going to say next and be really conscious of it. I was like, I was always like, how do people just do it automatically? Come out with the next thing to say without even thinking about it. So I'm a bit of a weirdo in that way, but I think that the streams actually really helped me to find myself as somebody who's actually able to express and get across what I want to say properly.
Yet, truthfully, I would not guess at all that you're not completely comfortable at doing this, and it seems like it just comes naturally.
Oh man, I have another YouTube channel actually that probably barely anyone knows about anymore, but it was all about my concept art and taught people how to do digital painting and stuff. And that was some of the first videos that I did. You can look it up. It's just Clayton Barton Artist on YouTube. And those videos were a very different Clayton, I can tell you.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Oh no, please don't. Now I'll be embarrassed. It's good. It's good to feel comfortable just talking and interacting and teaching, most importantly. But really amazing videos here, high level of quality, and all for free. I hope that people realize the amount of value you're getting in these videos, even though they're being put out there for free, because they really will just take your artwork to a whole other level if you pay attention to them. You built up your subscribers over the last year to just a massive amount, which is really great to see as well. Awesome amount of growth there.
Yeah, I started my channel actually, I guess it'd be 6 years ago now, and I put up a couple of videos and nobody watched them because that's how YouTube works. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of moved on. I'm sure I wouldn't have moved on so fast, except nobody watched them, right? And over the years, some people found them, and I had 11,000 subscribers.
Oh wow!
And I think it was 5 or 6 videos. And they were tutorials, so that helped, and so it was actually Jimmy Reyes, Page One Comics.
Awesome.
Jimmy.
We love Jimmy.
He actually, I think you were on the stream, the first one that I did with.
Awesome. Yeah. That was the first time I got to meet you.
I had no idea that I had a decent amount of subscribers on the YouTube channel at all until he told me. He said, yeah, you should take it up again. And the pandemic was just starting. And so I thought, hey, it's a good way to, get myself out there. And I thought with the way things are going, also, I think this is really important for anyone. If you're drawing, you really do need to use social media, not necessarily Twitter. I don't think, but as an artist using, especially Instagram, is important because it used to be that there was Wizard magazine. I'm sure you remember Wizard.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
when a new project would come out, they would promote it, and you would get like 2 pages. This is if you're working, like when I was at Top Cow, we would get every once in a while a story, and if you can get that, it would make you're like the big man on campus, for months after that. It's a big deal to have that's like you've arrived. Well, there is none of that now. You get a story in a mainstream comics news site online, and that story appears and then is replaced 15 minutes later, and it just doesn't have any impact. So if you want to promote yourself, you have to be out there. And that was a big part of this for me, is just to, keep promoting that I'm around,
That you're around. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's great to see you still, working on different projects as well, different comic books that are out there sitting on the comic book shelves. I don't know which ones you're working on right now. It's been a while since I've actually been to a comic book store.
Well, I haven't done interiors on a book for a few years. I have. It just hasn't come out yet. I'm working on a creator owned project. And
fantastic.
We're getting to the point where it's, I want to say home stretch. There's still a decent amount to do, but I've got about a quarter of it left to do. And so it's coming very soon. And I'm also doing Walking Dead covers. It's coming out.
I've seen
every
those.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. And a lot of the sketches that I'm doing on the live stream are covers too. They're not actually, I'm not drawing them as covers, but they're getting picked up as covers. Like I did a Spawn cover for King Spawn. I think it came out last month, and that was, I did that one on the stream, I think last December. I think we've had 6 or 7 anyway of them that have been Marvel covers so far, and we've got more coming. So I was doing a lot of covers for both Marvel and DC. I have been not getting my creator own project finished, anywhere near as quickly as I wanted to. So I finally I pulled back. So I'm just doing Walking Dead covers and the creator own book. So it will finally come out.
Okay, cool. And I mean, obviously my curiosity is piqued now with this creator own project, Dave. What can you say about it, and how are you planning to get it out there? Have you got a publisher in mind, or are you going to go the crowdfunding route?
Okay, I can't
say as much as you like, or as little as you like.
I can't really, say anything truthfully.
That's okay.
Will say, what can I say? Okay, here's what I will say.
Okay, cool.
Because I can't talk about how it's coming out or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm making it myself, which is, always more work for sure. And I'm drawing all the pages double sized, which I don't know what I was thinking when I started. Like, hey, that would be a good idea. Link it myself and do it double sized. So
extra detail.
It's exponential. It's not even just extra. It's, you draw a double page spread. I'm sure you've run into this where, a single page versus a double page spread, it doesn't take twice as long. It can take 4 times as long. It's crazy how that can go. Yeah. And so I've been finding, and it's very detail oriented work, and a lot of stuff going on. I'm proud of it. I really am. Actually, a lot. I'm when it comes out, I'm sure I'll have somebody say, "Hey, wait a minute, that head's too big," and I'll be like, "It'll be all over."
I can't wait to see it. I've been waiting for more David Finch comic books.
It's been too long. I miss it. It's been ages, and it's nice having covers out, but I'm a comic artist. I don't want to be a cover artist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's definitely something about being able to, and that's what's brilliant about comic books, as you said, is being able to tell a story. I don't know. I think that's why I was drawing comic book strips when I was in primary school. I'd watch a cartoon on the TV and I'd want to turn it into a comic book strip for some reason. And there is no time where I am more in my element than when I'm doing the layouts for a comic book page. And and I'm figuring out what the camera angles are going to be and where those characters are going to be positioned, what I want to have revealed or come across on that page. And, I guess this is a really great transition, actually, into your course that you're doing with Proco at the moment.
Oh,
This
that's
one
right.
here, creating a comic book page. And this is one that I jumped on board with straight away. Like, there's 2 lessons so far. I was stoked because I checked back here last night. I didn't know there was more lessons. And I checked them out, and it looks like you go over, we won't watch any, of course, but it looks like you've started going over the basics of composition and cinematic storytelling with composition and the compositional pitfalls you can run into, which I don't think I've ever seen a course on how to actually create a sequential comic book page, let alone one that goes this much in depth with the fundamentals of it.
Yeah, I don't know of one. It's true. You find figure drawing, you find, a lot of things, but, a full page from reading the script, interpreting the script, which is a whole thing unto itself. You need to know reading a script can be very difficult because some writers like to use a lot of words and they can hit you with all kinds of things that really don't actually help you do your job. So you need to be able to pick out the key things, the important things to know, to put on the page. And then just laying out a page, you need to know which panels are going to take a little bit more room and which you can make smaller. And once you do that, it's like putting together a little jigsaw puzzle. You get something that you like. And then, it's drawing the inside of it. There's a lot of layout, and a lot of the layout that's in here is layout specific to panel design, page design, making a panel flow from one panel to another, and making sure that those kinds of transitions work. How to decide, for instance, you need an establishing shot, and you can decide to go very small with that and very graphic if it'll work. And then there are times you need to go big and get a lot of things in there, like the Macy's parade in New York, and you've got the balloons, and I've had a writer do that to me before. And, that takes a big panel, and you need to plan that. So all that stuff is in there in the beginning. And then it goes from there to doing a couple little thumbnail layouts. There are a few pages in there. I did 3 different pages.
Oh, cool.
Of layout from 3 different pages. And I also included script that has some mistakes in it. This is something, and I've seen this from a lot of writers. I've gotten this in scripts where, a writer will describe, probably the most common example is a writer will describe a character pulls a gun out. Now, this is just an example, but there are a lot of variations of this. Shoots it and then puts it back into the holster, and they say that all happens in one panel, and that's not possible to draw in one panel unless you do you could do the ghost hands. You could do that, but if you want to make that work, you would really need to show maybe a close-up of the hand on the holster, and then the gun coming out and firing, and then the hand going back. That's 3 panels to really make that work. And there are so many examples of how that can happen. So I put that in there, and a few other things, other script problems that you kind of have to, and you'll run into this, even with experienced writers. It's, we all make mistakes, and you need to know how to be able to fix those on the page. So that stuff's in there. And then full pencils with perspective and all those kinds of problems that you can run into using compositional shadows and rendering and all that stuff, and then inking. There's a whole section on inking. I used traditional quill and brush on some of it. Some more modern tools, like the Tombos, those kinds of things. And then I did a panel where I just did kind of a layout and did the whole thing with ink, like all the detail with ink, which is really more how I work. So I wanted to kind of get a range in there.
That's so great. I can't wait to see the rest of the lessons, knowing that there's that much content coming up, and you're covering not just the basic concepts of it and the foundations of it, but also taking us through the process of an entire page. That's awesome, man. And like I said, there's nothing else out there that actually shows you how to do that I've seen anyway. Maybe there is, maybe there's not, but
Yeah, I couldn't definitively say. There's
Yeah.
nothing I'm aware of anyway. Yeah.
Especially by David Finch, and that's the important thing. So yeah, really great to see this. There's a link to it in the description below, so be sure to check it out if you want to know how to the definitive explanation on how to do a comic book page. This is it.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the shout out on that one. I appreciate it, and really, everything. The website, I really do appreciate it.
No, it's all good. Like I said, our audience is mostly people who want to learn how to draw comic books, and that's exactly what you've dedicated a lot of your time to showing people how to do. So it's just the perfect thing to promote on this channel, and I genuinely believe in your courses as well. Like, I know that they have worked for me, and I say it all the time, I wouldn't be the artist I am today without having watched your courses. I definitely attribute a lot of credit to you for the huge amounts of growth I made in the early days.
Well, you're doing really beautiful work, so I appreciate it. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm looking forward to actually putting out some comic books in the not too distant future with some of that work in it. Up until this point, it's really only been covers and pin-ups, but we have got a few things in the works, and I'm looking forward to showing the world what we've got coming up. But you know what, Dave? I think that we might leave it there. I don't know. I haven't seen really any questions pop up. Is there anything that you guys would like to see Dave maybe demonstrate for us? Are you ready to do some drawing at all?
Sure.
Prepared? I mean, maybe we could talk about, because I know that this is a question that comes up a lot, and that is, I know that you can't get super in depth with laying out a page, and that would be far too much to actually cover in the amount of time we've got left. But are there some just basic points that you could show us for where you would begin even thinking about your idea and projecting it down onto the page as panels, even if it's just panel layout?
I'm gonna switch my camera here.
Sweet. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
And we did a live stream a couple weeks ago now, and I still have the Proco thing on there, so it's perfect. It works out.
It is perfect.
Okay. By the way, this is my backing paper that when I normally draw on here, I put a piece of paper on here to cover the desk, and I don't have paper, so I'm going to just draw directly on here. But you know what? Why don't you give me an idea for like a couple of panels? Can you do that?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do something exciting, because I'm a bit like you in the art class. I like to see something exciting being drawn on the page. So maybe we could have a big brutish dude like the Hulk breaking through a wall, and maybe he's got some time to beat his chest, but by the end of the page, he's got to be slogging the hero in the face or something like that. Maybe from one side to the other of the room.
Okay, so I'm gonna what I always do is I just start pretty small, so I'll just draw my basic page shape.
Great.
So now, when I'm working on my own, truthfully, this is all I do, and then I just go directly to the page. But in the course, and for covers, if I have to turn them in, I always do more of a here. See if I can find. So here's a layout for Walking Dead.
Oh wow!
This one's actually not out yet. I probably shouldn't. But anyway, whatever. It's a layout for Walking Dead. It's the RV smashing through zombies coming out of the gate. And so you can see this is drawn to proper page proportions, just reduced down. And I get everything in there that I need. It's fairly loose. There's no lighting or anything like that. I have an idea here what I want for the lighting, and I could put the lighting in, but because I know I'm too lazy. So, but that's really what I would do for something just a little bit more complete. But for hero, I'm just going to work really small, and I'm going to start by I'm going to say so. I'm thinking panel 1. I know I want it to be really big. That's the panel where Hulk is bursting in. So that's really the big,
Cool.
important shot. And then panel 2. You had panel 1 was him bursting in. Panel 2, what did you have?
So panel 1 he's bursting in. Maybe panel 2 or whatever panel it lands on, he's beating his chest.
Okay.
He's whatever the Hulk does to show a little bit of domination to the hero or the character he's coming up against.
Okay.
And then anything can happen in between that, but at the end of the page, he's throwing or punching the hero from one side of the room to the other, or the villain, depending on who he's going up against.
Okay, and so the first thing that I always do when I read a script is I basically write down, just so I can remember, because I don't want to have to read the script again.
Right.
I'm lazy that way. So I write down 1 or 2 words that describe everything I need to know in the panel. And I know that's Hulk bursting. I'm not going to write the whole thing. I just write bursting. So I remember. And then in the chest, where he's beating his chest, and then hero, I've got an arrow because he's hitting the hero. It doesn't matter what you write, just as long as you can remember that that's what you're doing. And so I'm thinking, I have a choice actually, and I'll do a couple of little small ones. I could do maybe panel 1 like this. That's too much. I need room for panel 2, and then panel 2 like this, and then panel 3 down here. But that starts to get a little bit even in size, and I generally kind of don't like. Or you know what? Here's what I could do. I could do panel 1 like this. I'll make it a little bit bigger, and then panel 2 like this, and then panel 3 would be here. Cool. And that could work. Or what I think I'm actually going to do is not draw off the page. I'm thinking I'm going to do a big panel here. That's going to be my big panel. And then I'm going to do another panel here. And then a little panel here. And now my problem with this is that I've got him beating up the hero here. And that's becoming a really small panel. And this is why I like planning it like this, because I know what I need in my panels. If I draw a tiny little panel like that, it's going to be really not ideal. So I'm going to try another one down here. And I'm going to say, okay, I know I want panel 1 to be really big. And I don't want to go this way. Like if I cut it and do a tall panel, Hulk is really wide. I don't think that's going to work for me. So I'm going to try, I'm just going to go smaller, but still big. So it's not quite half the page. And then I'm going to go with a panel here where he's beating his chest. And then that gives me a whole lot more room down here to do this panel.
That's great. So your panel layout is really something that you think about. It's not just random, but it serves the story and the characters that are playing out that story.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And now that I've kind of got that plan too, I think I'm just going to eliminate that panel line. So this will just be a bleed into this whole thing, and these 2 panels will be over it. So I'm just going to draw. I can make this probably about that size. And then my last panel, which I want it to be a little bigger, is going to be there. That gives me a pretty good amount of room there. Let me, find my sharpener.
And we had a really quick question before, actually, from somebody who was asking about the tape on your pen and why that's there and how it helps you out.
My hand just gets tired, from drawing a lot. I've got a pretty good callus here. The tip of my finger, I don't know if you can really see it there, but it's a little callus from pressing in. And inside my thumb here, and I think you can kind of see it there, and that's from gripping the pencil. Yeah. And that's the one that actually really starts to hurt. And so I have the tape there, and I've had it like this for years. And it instantly, when I started doing this, as a matter of fact, I was on a deadline. My hand was hurting so much, I thought I need to put something on it. I tried some tape, and it helped out right away. So okay, so
Go ahead.
Panel 1, I'm thinking now I can do a few of these too. So I'm just gonna go for it. Or I can erase. I can take a choice. I tend to like to do one layout. I'm lazy, so I'm more likely to try it if I don't like it than just erase it. So let's see. I want it coming out. Okay, so I have a choice. I could do it. I'm off the page again. I could have him coming out directly towards you. Here's his hands, here's another hand. And there's all kinds of stuff coming up. But I generally don't like that. I like getting that movement through.
Gotcha.
So I figure I'm going to do one big hand here. I don't want it to cover his face. There's his big fist. And then the other one is going to end up coming off and punching all the way through. This is a terrible drawing, but it's not really the point right now. Here's his one leg, and then here's the other leg. And then I've got my wall that he's kind of bursting through.
That's a great pose already.
Thank you. And the one problem I'm having with this right now is I've got him punching a hero, but I'm not going to see the hero until panel 3. I don't think that really works. I think I need to show that hero is there and Hulk is after the hero. So if I just do that panel, I could make that work. If in the previous page, and this is where reading the whole script is really helpful. If in the previous page, I've got, a panel here, my hero's talking, blah, blah, blah. And then, whatever, a bunch of things happen. And then in the last panel, I do a thing where he's shocked and he turns over his shoulder and looks behind him and you hear a noise like boom, then that can work.
Yep.
But if I don't have that established, what I would do is, and I'm going to do one more, and I want to make sure to establish my hero. And so
for sure,
I'm going to draw him down here, try not to cover it with my hand. And he's reacting to it. And so this is him. You're looking at his back. And then we've got the same shot of Hulk bursting through. He's going to have to be a little bit smaller because I need to make room for the other guy. But basically the same shot. I'm not going to kill myself drawing it twice. And here's the wall. I would have to do something like that. I think I would end up making this mostly dark here because I don't want to be looking at that. I want to be looking at Hulk and really focused on that. And I'd have my same movement. So that's how I would approach that panel there. And so let's just say that's what we'll do. Because I think that would probably, I want to make sure the storytelling works all on one page. You know what? I could probably get him in here. Look at that.
Oh, fantastic.
I still kind of like this more though, because I don't want, I don't know.
It works.
Yeah, I think it works. I just don't want tangent. Anyway, whatever. That's basically the idea. And then for my next panel, I'm going to draw my Hulk really big and he's looking down. And
nice.
I don't have him beating his chest.
Yeah, that
because
doesn't matter.
I really want to
this
show
better.
My hero kind of like looking up at him like, oh no, you're still seeing the hero from behind and Hulk is, angry. And so I'll draw some cool shadows coming down. And I won't draw this guy dark now because I want Hulk to be kind of dark behind him. And you're looking down and there's still some rocks and stuff falling. And so the hero is at the bottom of the panel and he's, got Hulk looming over him here.
Nice. That looks
and
great.
then in my last panel, I'm going to have Hulk crushing him. And so,
cool.
How do I want to do it? I guess, I mean, in really simple terms, I could draw the guy's head like this and his teeth are all coming out and Hulk's here and he's, punching the guy out. I mean, that would work. Yeah. There are so many different ways you can do it. I'm not going to spend forever trying every different way. And I don't want it to be too similar to that. I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
It might be actually. So I think I would spend a little bit of time trying a few different types of panels just to make sure it doesn't remind me of that shot there. But one advantage of this shot, hopefully you can see what I'm drawing here. I mean, this is such a mess that it's, that's his head. Let me make it a little cleaner so you can actually see and this is the problem. When I draw my sketches myself, they're so loose that I don't think anybody else could even tell. Here's his hand.
Well, it goes to show it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It's very experimental. Like I'm sure you don't have a complete idea necessarily as to how this page is going to end up in the end. You sort of work your way through it.
Yeah, and right now it's really just about establishing simple shapes and basic compositions. Like this shot here, I'm actually pretty happy with that. I didn't follow the script.
Are there times when you don't follow the script?
Yes,
Are you
but
allowed
I
not
try
to?
to keep that. I try to keep that really, really rare. So truthfully, I feel like I'm cheating here a little bit, because if that was in the script, I would probably spend some time trying to figure out how to make sure that that's in the script, like that's in the page. And I cheated, so I have to admit I didn't.
That's okay. I didn't think a whole lot about it, to be honest, beforehand.
I figured I could get away with it, but yes, I did kind of cheat. Now, another problem, and this is something I'd probably want to look at too, is this figure is very similar in size to that figure. I like that these ones are smaller, but you want to have one panel where, if I did a whole page here, and I'll just draw, here's one big panel. I've got a big close up of my character, and the next one I can draw, you're looking down at him. He's very, very small, and so you get that kind of contrast there. And then my last panel, maybe I'll do like a I don't know, the disaster, but something that's more like that size. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to get across with these, this is terrible, I know, but you want to change up not only your size but your angle. I explained this better in the video, trust me, really.
I watched that video just last night, actually, and you did explain it very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I almost think you could use what you're teaching in the how to lay out a comic book page course to a movie director or something. Like,
it's a really similar skill. It really is storyboarding. The difference is when you're storyboarding, every panel that you're dealing with is basically, that shape right there. And then you go on to the next one and the next one. And you also have, some movement lines and different things. But really, they're stuck with the same panel shape and size. Whereas this, you have to take into account different panel sizes. And, working through these versions here, like this one here, this panel I could do it, but how much impact would that have at that size? It would be way too small. So, and this one here, this actually really could have worked. I know it's a mess here because I basically did a couple layouts on top of one thing, but without erasing there.
That's okay.
It could have worked, but I don't generally like those kinds of layouts. Mostly, I feel like they can get confusing. But all in all, despite the fact that I feel like I got too close with these sizes here, and I would change this panel, I think, just because it's too similar. All in all, I like the page. I like that. I would just have to fix that.
It looks great. I almost want to see it done now. Damn it.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to draw a Hulk page right now. And this Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're good at drawing him, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Nothing beats a David Finch Hulk. Except, Mark Silvestri Hulk is up there too.
Gal Keown, got to admit, he does a pretty good Hulk. This is incredible.
All right, cool. So, look, there's the drawing demo. I promised people a drawing demo. You gave us a drawing demo, so thanks a lot for that, Dave. That was really awesome. And, I know that I know what you're going through when you're trying to explain something that comes probably very intuitively to you. And then to try and express that to other people, I know that can be tough, but I think you do it very well in a very relatable way.
Thank you. I feel like my favorite thing about the process that I learned over the years is just ignoring 99% of what's written in the script and breaking it down. Now, I need to read. When I say ignoring, I don't mean ignoring. I read the whole, whenever I get a script, I read the whole thing first, and I read it like a story, because I want to get a sense of not only, the whole overall flow of the story, but also where the writer's coming from and the mood. And, you get all those things from reading the whole thing and reading it well, maybe even twice but then when I'm reading it in order to draw it, I really want bullet points. Like, he's bursting in, he's beating his chest, which I missed. I know, but and just the important things.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah, I've got an interesting question for you, actually, before we wrap it up. Do you think that artists, comic book artists in particular, in a sense, have some capability of writing, since they're essentially telling a story through images? Do you think that that's a natural, maybe, gift that they've got as well? Or do you think that writing is a whole other thing you've got to study up?
I don't think that writing is a whole other thing. There's a lot of carryover for sure. And being able to visually hit story beats, that's what drawing is all about. And mood and understanding the importance of, who, what, where, all that. Like, that's all the stuff that you need to know to write. Also, when you're drawing, you're responsible for acting and costume and all these things that, if you're writing, it makes you really aware of them. And I think that it definitely carries over. Where it doesn't carry over is things like motivation, characters' motivation, and other things that I don't understand because I'm not a writer. I've tried, but I can tell you that there are a lot of things. Theme. Yeah. There you go. Theme is another thing that you're not going to get from, drawing. I mean, you can get visual theme. So, hey, maybe. I don't think in terms of theme, though.
So what do you mean by theme exactly, just out of curiosity?
So when you write a story, your story is about whatever it's about. It's about somebody that is going to prevent some horrible villain attack that's going to destroy the world. That's what it's about. But what your story is really about is a commentary on, what is it? The power corrupts absolutely. Whatever it is, whatever you choose, you need to decide in, really simple terms what your story is about thematically, and then make sure that everything that you're writing supports that. It's a very esoteric, apparently simple, people say. I find it impossible, and I am not a writer.
Yeah, right. That's very interesting. Yeah, I have thought on a little bit of a level about some of the messages I'd like to get across in my comic books, and I guess in a weird way, it's beliefs that you're getting across through a story.
Yeah.
I've got a confession, Dave. I tried writing out a full script for a comic book, and I just am not very good at taking written word or writing with words in a way where it's going to work visually. So what I've done is, instead, I write a basic plot. I split the plot up into the pages that I'm thinking that plot is going to occur on, like one sentence descriptions on each of those pages. And then I just go ahead and I start doing really basic sketches like you were just showing us, in order to, I guess, fill out the rest of the book and to figure out how it's all going to play out properly. Because, written word just doesn't work for me for some reason. So I'd probably be terrible to work with. And if I
disagree. I mean, that's the tried and true Marvel method. They did that for years and years. When I started, I spent 7 years. Every time I drew, it was always that way. I would get just everything written in paragraph form. I would even have to pick where the pages went. So what I would do is I'd read it and go, okay, that's about a page. And I would just, circle it and go 1. And then I would go through the script that way. I decided where the double page spreads were. That's how we used to work.
That's interesting. I had no idea.
It's a better way to work if, as an artist, you are dedicated to telling the story as well as you can. If you are dedicated to making it easy for yourself, which I've done, I have to admit. And it's a terrible way to work.
Oh, yep.
Gotcha. I wrote a story for Top Cow that an artist drew, and there was a helicopter in this whole scene with a helicopter in it. And in the final artwork, there was no helicopter. And I had to figure out a way, because I had the art. And so I have to then write all the words and bring it together. I had to find a way to try to jerry-rig a story into this. It was hard. And that used to happen to writers all the time, which is why nowadays writers write full script. But if you're drawing it and you know how to lay it out, which obviously you do, I'd say the way you're doing it's probably better, I think.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. I feel like it's just so intuitive, and it's a lot of fun as well. Like, it almost writes itself sometimes when I work that way. I've found it takes on a bit of a life of its own. It's kind of magical.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, I hear that Stan Lee used to sit in his office, and the artist would come in, and he would tell them what happens in the story in like 3 sentences. Spider-Man fights Doc Ock. He's late for school. Go.
Yeah, right. Cool. So that's how a comic book is made, huh?
Well, maybe in the 60s.
Sometimes.
And it probably came a little more than that, but
yeah. Great. Well, Dave, it's been just an absolute pleasure catching up with you and being able to chat about your journey throughout comics and where it's taken you, how far it's taken you, your transition into teaching and your explorations in painting and whatnot. And finally, talking about where we can find your courses, the demonstration you did for us. You delivered so much value in this interview, so I sincerely thank you for that.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do this again, sooner rather than later.
Oh, I'd love to.
And, again, thank you so much for the shout out on the courses and all that stuff.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And, hopefully some of you guys would give it a try and it's valuable for you.
Oh yeah, I think anyone who wants to learn how to draw comics needs to know about those courses. So I'm happy to promote them. And big thank you to the chat, guys. I know I didn't get much of a chance to interact with you today. I'm terrible at multitasking. If I was getting comments up here, I'd be looking at Dave with a blank look on my face and wondering what the hell he was just talking about. So I was paying attention a lot to Dave today, but I do want to just express how much I appreciate you for tuning in, and I hope that you got as much out of this interview as I did. And yeah, hopefully it will happen again. I'd love to cover more topics with you, Dave, and just pick your brain about more of this drawing comic book stuff. Something I'm very interested in. All right, till next time, everyone. Keep on creating, keep on practicing, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.